Hello, and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World, episode 49, with me, John Jordan. In this episode, I'm talking to Alex Casassovici, who's a co-founder at Azarus. Now, Azarus is an interesting blockchain game project. It uses a EOS sidechain, and one of the interesting things about using EOS is that it can take away from the users all the problematic blockchain UX stuff that everyone else struggles with. What's also interesting about Azarus is it can be retrospectively fitted to existing non-blockchain games. So what is Azarus? Azarus is very simply a reward platform that uses Twitch. So the only thing you need to log into Azarus is to log into your Twitch, and then you can access it. What is it? It's kind of an overlay for streamers. So it currently is being used with Ubisoft and Rainbow Six Siege, their big esports game. And what you can do is, if you're a developer or a streamer, you can set up challenges and interaction with your audience. They can interact with your stream, answer questions, and when they do that, they get some of the in-platform currency, which is called AZA credits. Now, that is a cryptocurrency, but it is locked within the system. So you can use that to buy in-game items and real-world items, but you can't cash it out as a cryptocurrency. So in a sense, with Azarus, what we're seeing is the best of both worlds. We're seeing the good use of blockchain for all the things blockchain's good at, but we're not seeing any of the problems we have in most other blockchain games projects, which is just blockchain is really hard to get mass market adoption with. So I had a really great time talking to Alex. He's a very smart guy. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Any comments, please do find me on Twitter. I am BlockchainGMG. So hello, Alex. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You're in, where are you? You're in San Francisco at the moment?
That's correct. It's sunny and warm. Perfect.
I have to say it is sunny and warm in Manchester as well, which isn't always the case. So, so we're both enjoying Midsummer's Day, which is where we are at the moment. But we're not here to talk about the weather, or we're here to talk about blockchain. So you've been around actually in blockchain for quite a while. You were certainly, I think, well experienced by the time I kind of met up with you about a year, getting on for a year and a half ago, maybe. So do you want to give us a potted history, how you got into blockchain?
So I started in the early 2014 buying Bitcoin, pretty much like everybody else on Mt. Gox. I still have them on Mt. Gox, by the way. I hope I see them soon. And so that was my first interaction with crypto. Then after I sold my last company in 2017, I dwelled more into the blockchain and to the tech stack, running consultancy firm and helping projects basically apply game mechanics and game design to their tokens and the coins and helping them create their own dApps. So that's how I got into more the stack, the technology behind the crypto. And one thing leading to the other, I got back into gaming and started Azarus.
So you had a kind of history in the tech space, got into blockchain. Azarus, how did that come about? Because Azarus is a kind of interesting project. It's getting a lot of headway, but it's, I think, compared to most blockchain projects in the gaming space, is pretty different. We'll get into the details of that, but
so we were basically looking at the space with my two co-founder Eric and Andrew. Both of them, so the three of us, are from the game industry, so we know really well how AAA game developers work, how those publisher works. We were looking at how blockchain is going to impact existing AAA titles. So we really looked at the field in a very different way. So we were not looking at creating a new game. We were not looking at making necessarily NFTs. We were taking a blank slate, looking at, hey, this technology is amazing. Those games have volumes. Publishers have their own constraints, their own way of looking at the world, their community, and they have the responsibility of those big numbers and big communities that they manage. How can blockchain augment and help out and bring another dimension to those games? So that was really the way we looked at the problem when we started working on Azarus. And one thing that struck us is that all those big communities all are bound around the same need of challenges, showing your skills, showing you are better than your friends, showing that you are able to achieve things. And this is kind of one of the core reasons I'm a gamer. This is why I game. I want to get better. I want to show that I'm progressing. I want someone sometimes to show my friend that I'm better at them at this particular skill set. And the whole industry over the past, 30 years is paved by how players have been defining their own ways of playing the game. One of the very well-known examples is League of Legends from Riot Games, where they started as a 5v5 on 3 lanes, and players just verbally agreed to play 3v2 on 1 lane to change a little bit the pace and the gameplay, and basically to appropriate themselves this game. So we're looking at all this phenomenon, and one of the core value of blockchain is really bringing the power back to the players. And we're like, look, all those games have data. We can use that data and use the power of blockchain to basically allow players to contractualize and agree what are the rules, stakes, and rewards when they play, and take that behavior that was already there, but just make it scalable, trustable, and apply to every single game that you already play. So this is Azarus.
And you weren't tempted at all to make games at this stage. Obviously, it was quite easy to make games then. Kind of like it still is, but definitely when you were thinking about this kind of stuff, it was CryptoKitties kind of style gaming. Did it just not appeal to you at all? Because what you're talking about there is quite a deep. Thinking quite deeply about how gamers interact with games and how that can change using the blockchain. That's not what most people are thinking about. Most people are thinking about, let's make a game based on NFTs.
That's right. I think it's fair. I think it has value. NFTs are awesome. Proving true ownership is awesome. And it's a part of what blockchain can bring to games. We're just looking at that other aspect, which is empowering. One thing I try to also advocate is how DAOs and giving the power to the players also is something super important in games. If you've been playing MMORPGs for the past 10 years, like World of Warcraft, you know how guilds work, how those interactions within the guilds are happening verbally, and how people usually get frustrated. People take over the leadership of the guild, decide what happens, who gets the loot, how all those behaviors could be so much more frictionless, simple, and transparent using blockchain technology. I feel like blockchain has a lot to bring to games beyond the NFTs. NFTs are valuable because if you are going to invest money to buy something digital, of course, it's better if you can own it and maybe trade it, and because it's an investment, and that can change the way also games are being made so that buying an item becomes an opportunity rather than a solution to frustration, as it has been in mobile gaming for the last decade. But blockchain has so many other aspects as a technology that it can bring to games, and that's really what we're looking at. So we're not making games because making games is hard, and with the very first one, like really we recognize it deeply. When you look at indies all the way to publishers, you can appreciate how it's a thing of passion. It's so high risk. It's even, I would tend to say it's even riskier than the startup world. Like there's like 1 in 1,000 chance for your game to be successful. If it is successful, it's an order of magnitude higher. So you get returns that are crazy, but the chance and the idea, like it's very hard. It's very hard. Even for the big ones, they fail sometimes because there's simply no recipe.
So you came up with an idea. Ideas are always good in the startup world, but implementation is normally the thing that kills you. So how did you take it from that idea stage of kind of what you kind of thought what you wanted to do, and how did you start building something?
So we were extremely lucky to have Ubisoft as a partners. We have been part of the accelerator program in Station F in Paris, France, since Q2 2018. So they have been extremely supportive in helping us define, narrow down our hypotheses, come together with a testing environment to verify those hypotheses, and we were able together to run a first test in September on the biggest title, Rainbow Six Siege, which is their biggest esports title. And that test has been phenomenal. The results we were able to extract in terms of metrics from the test were crazy. We made a very simplistic version of Azarus under the form of a Twitch extension. So if you're not familiar with Twitch extensions, they're basically web overlay on top of the Twitch stream. You don't have as a user to install anything. It comes directly through Twitch. And this overlay allows you to interact. Like it has a few buttons. You can basically put every type of content you want on that overlay, and all the viewers will see it. And so the way we use that is as a way for the publisher to ask questions about what happened in the stream, what just happened in the game that was being streamed, how many headshots, how many penetration kills, and really looking nitty gritty details of what just happened to prove that you were paying attention and listen what you're doing. We also allowed the players to challenge the streamer over those same metrics. If you are able to do 3 penetration kills, I will donate you zero point 0.1 credit, and so on and so forth. So it's really that two-way interaction, viewers being able to earn those credits and transform them into in-game rewards, and challenging the streamer that they like and pushing it and basically creating that connection, making it even more interesting to stay online, watch the game, and see if he manages to hit that objective that as a group they set for him. And that simple mechanic got 3 smaller streamers from 20 concurrent viewers to over 1,000 viewers, and the biggest stream on the Rainbow Six Siege channel on Twitch in less than a week. So that's kind of the level of impact that we are able to demonstrate, and that only went uphill from there.
I guess what's interesting here in this case, in terms of the implementation of blockchain, is obviously you're implementing it in a non-blockchain game with a massive audience. So it's kind of, you don't worry about scale because the game is providing the scale. You're providing the kind of the new functionality, which is really where most blockchain projects have kind of failed because they've kind of required. They've been very hard to retrofit in existing products, and when they have been able to do that, they require this whole other infrastructure. Whereas, as far as I understand, you can just log in with Twitch, can you?
That's correct. The only thing you have to do as a user is to click on the authorize button the first time that the extension shows on your screen, and that's it. You're in. We authenticate you through Twitch. We know who you are, and then we generate in the background all those private keys and public keys that you will be needing to interact with the blockchain. But we really hide all the complexity to you. And indeed, we are able to onboard all those users on those massive games because we are also able to do that without changing a single line of code in the game. And that's something that I learned the hard way from my previous company, where we were selling SDKs to those same publishers. Adding an SDK to a game is 6 to 12 months of work to get that SDK integrated. So it's always a very long project and a very long sales cycle until you get that little piece of code included in the game. And what's genius here with Azarus is that we're tapping into data that's already there, that's in the databases of the publisher. So we do not need that level of integration, and we're able to add a new game to the platform in a matter of days.
Now you've kind of mentioned a few kind of blockchainy type things, skated over them a little bit. We'll dig into them a bit more detail. So, in terms of the kind of the tech side of it, you're running on EOS, is that right, or a version of EOS? How do you sit in the EOS world?
So we are a sidechain of EOS, meaning we have the latest version of the release EOS.io software, and we run our own sidechain along with our partners. So our publishing partners run nodes for us. And we have done that this way because, as you mentioned earlier, the number of users on those games is so high that whenever we are live on Pro League streams with 10, 30, 100,000 of viewers, the amount of transaction gets high really, really fast. So we wanted to make sure that we had full control on the throughput and the amount of this transaction speed that we could provide to make sure that we would serve with the proper quality of service all those users.
And I guess because of how EOS is constructed in terms of kind of how you create wallets, which is a total pain if you're trying to do it as a single person, but it's a bit different if you're a developer. You onboard people and you never mention the blockchain at all. So you are probably the highest volume blockchain game project in the world without any mention of blockchain.
Well, I always look at blockchain as a technology stack. So it's not about the blockchain, it's what the blockchain allows you to do. In our case, It allows us to manage very complex transactions in the simplest possible way. If you look at it from a financial standpoint, we have basically tokens, credits, other credits being staked on contracts. When the contracts resolve, those credits get distributed amongst all the winners and split evenly. And that simple transaction, that's a full clearinghouse. It's a very complex financial system. Making it through blockchain makes it trivial, scalable, easy to verify. It comes with so many upside that the technology is just the best fit for that type of software and that type of workflows.
No, I know the answer to this question, but I will ask it anyway. I mean, did you feel, because one of the big advantages of blockchain projects is they often say to their users, play this game and you'll earn cryptocurrency and all this sort of stuff. And you're very clear that you have a currency, a credit, which is effectively a cryptocurrency, but it can only be used within your system. It can't be cashed out on any exchanges because no one has access to the private keys. I mean, this is kind of how you deal with it. In any way, do you feel like you're kind of missing out on some sort of kind of sizzle that people would be interested if it was labeled as a cryptocurrency?
So on the contrary, I feel that the fact that our currency, the ASA, which we call a credit, I need to make sure that I use the right word, otherwise Eric, my CMO, looks and does me the eye. But so our credit is actually extremely powerful in the sense that right now publishers, AAA publishers, are not extremely crypto friendly. They and the fact that we use a credit allows us to have a lot of flexibility. Knowing that that's something that does not have a dollar value allows you to stake it, to play it, to earn it, to redeem it without even touching gambling laws. It's a simpler approach to a problem. If we were to become a cryptocurrency, that would probably push us into a gray zone from a legal standpoint that we do not want to get into. And that way of doing things has been extremely appreciated by our partners. That's what has allowed us, among other things, to discuss with all the big players of the industry and get start working on those games. If we had been a cryptocurrency, I don't think that we would be where we are today. So I'm feeling that indeed there's a lot going on in the crypto space. I appreciate it. I think it's really important, and especially when you look at Libra, who just has been announced last week. There's so much going on in cryptocurrencies that have a dollar value and that are tradable. I feel that what we're doing though is different. We are creating a challenge network where people can play, have skin in the game. We want to make sure that we keep that whole network safe, friendly, and without any of the risk that you would have in a gambling, betting
No, I
type of
entirely
thing.
agree. I think the kind of utility you get from how you created your system is the best way of you. People realise that these credits have value because they're using them to get real world kind of rewards or buying games or paying off a certain percentage of what you would do to get one of those things. But as soon as you start letting that become a cryptocurrency that can move around, for one, I guess the people your companies you're working with then are in control. No one's in control of that, so you don't know whether someone's going to come in somehow game your system and take all this money out of the system. Whereas the way you've done it is you can talk to any game company and just say you're creating this value system, you're creating very engaged users for them, and you can direct where the output goes to, which is which is I imagine you couldn't create a better kind of scenario for content creators.
Absolutely. I think you just nailed it. That's exactly what we're doing, and that's why we have been constructing the Azarus platform the way it is. So that I couldn't have said it better myself.
So what does come next? What can you talk about in terms of your future? Obviously, there's obvious things you're probably doing, but in terms of what you can publicly say, what can we know?
So the few things that we can announce, we'll have some new features coming in next week where you will be able to challenge your own friends on Rainbow Six Siege, so which is actually the real vision that we had for Azarus, which is those peer-to-peer challenges. So this is coming next week. It's extremely exciting. We are working on a full new platform that should be released with probably by the end of the summer, maybe earlier. That will be standalone, multi-screen with overlays. So that's extremely exciting for us because it's really moving from that prototyping stage that we have iterated on since September last year into something that's more in line with the value that we have for the product as a full platform. So that's extremely exciting. And then the one big piece, but I can't say name, there's so many more games and rewards coming to the platform. So that's one of the things that we have been hustling on for the past 3 to 6 months, is getting more games, more rewards, and just simply increasing the size of the network of the whatever game you play probably will be on others within the next 6 to 12 months. So that's one thing that I'm extremely excited about.
Do you think, kind of more generally, that when you talk to companies, if you can present blockchain in a way that makes sense for their business, they're very receptive? Because my opinion is, or my presumption is, there's most games companies in the world now are in some way thinking about how they can use blockchain. Now, it may not be in a year's time for most of them, maybe in a few years' time, but I think all of them are quite open to it as long as they can fit it into their business model. And the way you're presenting it is the easiest way of doing it. So do you kind of feel over the next kind of, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, there'll be a surprising uptake in the general games industry of blockchain projects of all sorts? Or do you still think there is a reticence when it comes to the more crypto blockchain side?
So definitely you are right. Most of the big AAA publishers, the big companies that we're talking to, they all have something in the works in relation to blockchain. And so they are looking at it, they know it's there. They're not, nobody is ignoring this anymore. That's for sure. Now, are we going to see a dab from one of those big guys next 3 to 6 months? Maybe, maybe not. Are they ready to include cryptocurrencies? Will probably not so fast, just because you have to put yourself in their shoes. They invest $250 million to make a game. They are publicly traded companies. They just went through a lot. It's not totally over when it comes to the loot box scandal, and I mean it's not entirely sorted out. So putting a cryptocurrency out there in one of those games is not something that you can do overnight. I don't think you can even do it in 6 months at that scale. You have to understand really clearly what will be the impact. Just like I always get back to the story of EVE Online, how a startup as CCP back in the days has been able to take that risk, build a full economy out of the game, and actually take the risk of having to tune that economy every single day until it hits a point where it's stable-ish or stable enough. You can do that as a startup, and that's really where all the companies emerging as blockchain games these days are trying to get. As a big company, it's really much harder because the stakes are so high that if you invest that $250 million, you better have the return that you were planning for and not lose 100,000 a day because you missed out on some of the variables of your economy.
No, I think so. Yeah, the risk reward thing, absolutely, the risk reward thing. Lovely. So excellent. Great to talk to you again. If people want to connect with you on Twitter or whatever your social media of choice is, how would they find you?
The best way to contact me as a gamer is on Discord. We have an Azarus.io server, and the link is on Azarus.io. Otherwise, I'm also on Twitter. My personal Twitter is Alex Casassovici.
Put those in the in the notes to the podcast. But cool. Thank you very much, Alex. Lovely to talk to you.
Thanks, John. Thanks again for your time. Always a pleasure.
Cool. And and thank you, listeners. So if you have any comments about the podcast, please do let me know. I'm at blockchain GMG on Twitter. Don't forget, you can always check us out on YouTube at Blockchain Gaming World, where we have a video version of this podcast as well. If you want to see some screenshots and some websites. But thanks for watching, and do come back next week to find out what's going on in the world of blockchain games.